Police are on high alert in Diepsloot to ensure that law and order is restored in the area. On Wednesday night, Zimbabwean Elvis Nyathi was killed after failing to produce his identity documents when asked by a mob that was going around requesting identification from residents. The confrontation came after some residents have been blaming undocumented foreign nationals for crime. Let's speak more with Nthabiseng Dubazane, a legal analyst, in terms of the legalities of this, where people can go door to door and request for identification. Always good to see you, Nthabi. Thank you very much for joining us. So who can ask me for my ID?
So the person that can ask you for your ID is a person identified in the Identifications Act, which is an officer of the peace in terms of Section 17, subsection 3A, or a person or a member of a category of persons designated by the minister in terms of a notice in the government gazette. So not me coming to your house and saying, "Do please produce your ID," and therefore I then make decisions based on that. I do not have that rank, and therefore I do not have that right.
Is this exclusively for South Africans?
It is for everyone within the country's borders. So for every person here, because it also falls within the ambit of constitutional law, which then goes to the right of privacy, which is found in our Bill of Rights. So you would be invading my privacy if you were to come to my house or my space and then inform me that if I don't produce my identity document, whether I am foreign or South African, and then you decide that by me failing to produce such documentation, you will act upon it. You're already invading my constitutional right to privacy, and also going against the Identification Act.
Is there such a thing as immigration policing? According to some reports today, at least, the police that have been deployed in the area in Diepsloot asking people to speak a certain language, and if they're not able to say what an elbow is in English for an African language or any indigenous language, then those people face arrest. Is that in itself illegal?
That is illegal. I myself have actually been victim of that when I was still in varsity because of the color of my skin, because it's darker than what South Africans ought to have. And I was about to be arrested by virtue of not knowing what an elbow is in Zulu, because Kemusoto. And then it was a whole thing. And that's when I found out at that stage that it is not legal for an officer of the peace, because South African police fall under the umbrella or the ambit of officers of the peace or peace officers in this situation. However, if they want to follow the procedure of identifying a person, if they are South African or not, if they're legal within the country, I beg your pardon, they have to follow the ambit of the Immigration Act, and they also have to follow the ambit of Section 43, subsection 3, if I'm not mistaken, of the Immigrations Act, which talks specifically into how do we identify or how do we go about going with the processes of identifying people who are illegal within the country's borders.
Please, if you will, indulge us, and let's just go back to your experience, perhaps when you were asked to produce your identity document. How did that confrontation go about? What do you remember about it, and what impression did it leave on your life?
So I was 18, 17, and I was doing my first year at VETS. And then we were walking home with my friends. We lived in Berea. And there was a police raid. I'm not sure what was happening there in a club. And then these 3 male police officers, they manhandled me because they heard my accent, Diepsloot, because it's not exactly accents from South Africa, because even though I was born here, I was raised in Lesotho where my family was. And then, I beg your pardon, and then when I refused to show them my ID, which I had on me, and told them I don't have to, one of the bigger police officers twisted my arm and then looked at my arm here, because in Lesotho, unlike South Africa where you get immunized on your upper shoulder, we get immunized at this part of our shoulder, of our arm, I beg your pardon. And then when he saw that, he said that I am foreign, and therefore if I don't produce my identity document, he's arresting me. And then I informed him to proceed to do so. And then the other Zulu police officer then slapped me across the face and informed me that I think I'm smart, and all of that. And the other one was pushing me around. I'm a 17-year-old girl at this time. And thereafter, after they saw that I'm not not budging, then they let me go. I tried to go to the Hillbrow police station to go open a case, but then they covered it up, and since then nothing has happened. So that was basically what I went through back in that time.
How are you feeling as you tell the story?
It's not as painful as it used to be. I'm okay with it now. There's nothing I had to go through the emotions and deal with it. Right now I'm okay with it. I use it as, what can I say, motivation to help people who find themselves in the position that I found myself, whether they're South African or not, because no one deserves to go through that. And looking at the situations that we are dealing with in terms of violence in our country, whether it's against women, children, or any other person within the country, it doesn't start now. It's from long ago, and it seems to continue. And the people in authority seem to take it that they have more rights to abuse, because I was abused by police officers. So, but I'm okay now.
Thank you very much for sharing, and I'm glad we're laughing about it today. But this continues, right? And you do mention that this is nothing new, rightfully so. From the work that you do, just how many of these cases do you come across, and especially when it comes to maybe, South Africans who are mistaken for foreign nationals just because the tone of your skin or the hue of your skin is darker than everyone else?
It is a ridiculous amount. Before I went into my own practice, it was almost on a daily basis that I would deal with that, because I worked for an institution that deals with in a public space. So every day in court, when you come across people who have been arrested in terms of the Immigration Act, when you finally speak to them, you find that, no, this person is speaking Shangani or Tsonga, but it is a local Tsonga. But because they're speaking Tsonga, they've been perceived as speaking Mozambican Shangan, and then they've been arrested as a result of that. And then they were never asked to go to the house to go bring an identity document to prove that they're South African or whatever the case may be. And this person has now spent over 48 hours most times in custody for wrongful arrests.
And with that then, how does one protect themselves from having their identity document taken?
Really, there's nothing much you can do, because usually the people in authority, when they do execute these actions, they will be speaking to people who don't know much about the law. So if they tell you that if you don't produce your identity document, this and that will happen to you, you end up believing them, and then you give them your identity document, not knowing whether or what they're going to do with that document. You only see the later stage if it was used in fraud or theft. Or if you're lucky enough, it is handed into the court, and in court appearances on the next day in court, and it can be handed back to you. But to be quite honest, in an immediate situation such as that, there's not much you can do to protect yourself, unless you can be able to read up on the law and know your rights, even though that sometimes doesn't work out good for you. But at least know your rights in terms so that when they do decide to arrest you, you would have executed what you know is the truth in this situation.
Legal analyst Nthabiseng Dubazane, always great to chat to you. Thank you for availing yourself.